Guys, my darlings, why are you rushing? For what? I honestly feel like if you rush and you run into a relationship, you're running from yourself. Whirlwind situations, I'm not saying they don't happen. They obviously do, but how often do they go right? Do you even know the person that you're getting into a relationship with? Honey, why? Why are you being so reckless with yourself? I think my dad raised me right with this stuff because, like my mom too, but my dad was the main parent to give me the sort of foundational stuff. And obviously I've thrown my own things into it, but with regards to dating. But look at the person. It's like people are just like, they're not even looking at the person. They're looking at how the person treats them. They're looking at what other people think of the person. And they're literally just looking at the person. But they're not seeing them for all that they are. And what are their motives in life? What are their intentions? What's consistent? What is consistent with this person? When you first meet someone, sorry, I'm going to bring the astrology thing up. But when you first meet somebody, you're meeting their rising sign. Okay, so your rising sign in astrology is before you all click out, just listen, okay? Hear me out. Your rising sign is how you appear to people. It is people's first impression of you. And when you're first dating somebody, you're gonna see their rising sign. They can't help it. Similarly, they're gonna see your rising sign. And everyone's like on their best behavior as well, okay? Rising sign regardless. You're also gonna see expressions of their sun sign. But what you're not seeing immediately is their Venus sign, how they actually love, how they actually show up in the relationship. You'll get a little bit of the Mars, the sexy side of things. But even if you take the astrology out of it, you haven't seen the entirety of who they are. I'm not saying that things don't work out. There are people out there that have dated for 6 months and they know, okay? And then they put a ring on it and they're good. There are those stories, yes. There are exceptions, yes. But for the most part, you're probably not the exception. If you feel the need to rush into something, to run down the aisle, honey, you're a walking, running red flag. Bitch, for what? Why? Why? What is that ring gonna symbolize to you? What is that relationship status gonna fill within you that you cannot have on your own? Security? Is that it? Validation of some sort? A parental figure that you didn't have? Or what is it? You need to address that first. I've learned a lot about relationships, and my dad always said to me what was said to him by like one of his sort of, I guess I'll just say guides. I don't know. You need to know who you are on your own first. And now, for a long time, I questioned this because I saw people around me getting into relationships. And I've also been, I've seen things where people question this and they're like, actually, you can get to know yourself better through relationships. And to an extent, I agree. Other people are a reflection of us. And I learned a lot from my previous relationship, absolutely, about myself, about how to approach other people, how to approach my partner in a relationship. Like, I learned a lot. There's no denying that. But I absolutely agree that you need to have a solid sense of self. You need to be anchored in yourself. Because, honey, you came into this world on your own and you will leave it on your own. Quit acting like you need to, stick yourself to somebody or else, No. We come in, we meet people, they come in, they go, whether it's friendships, everybody. Even if you are so close with your family, they're not going to be there forever. Yeah? So really think about who you are on your own. I absolutely agree that you can marry somebody and grow with them. Absolutely. I 100% agree. I think that is what creates a healthy relationship as well. Hold on, I'm going to check my storage. Okay, we're good. But you need to have a sense of self. Why do you think so many young people that get hitched end up divorcing? Did you ever think about that? It's not just because they're young and impulsive. Because a lot of people, to be fair, to give them the benefit of the doubt, it's not that they're young and impulsive. It's the fact that they don't know who they are, which is why they end up getting the divorce. Because they're like, I'm changing, they've changed, we're growing apart. So when I talk about as well, like when I talk about those like 6-month romances and stuff, the most of the time that works out is when the people are in their 30s and beyond. Because by that time, they have enough sense of self. The thing is, when it comes to personality, and I've discussed this before, this is just my own take on it. I feel like we have our core personality, and then we have, I guess, so that's like our nature, and then we have our nurture. But it is very hard to have a strong sense of self when you haven't experienced your natural nature and your nurture in a variety of environments. Why do you think people are so messy in their 20s for the most part? Is because they're going out and they're testing their different theories of self. They're trying to experience, they're going out, and therefore they're seeing themselves reflected in their lives time and time and time again in different environments. And actually, it's something I would recommend everybody to do. Do you need to be in a relationship in order to have that though? No. And that's what I think so many people in the West get wrong. You don't need to constantly be in a relationship to have a sense of self. My strongest sense of self has come from the jobs, the work that I've done. It's come from arguing with my parents and learning how to speak to them like an adult, but also have them respect me as an adult. It's come from making mistakes. Honestly, making a ton of mistakes and seeing how I navigate those mistakes. It's come from my friendships. Just the natural progression of them, the falling apart of them, the creating of them. Like, there are so many environments in which you can exist. It's come from my education. It's come from, like, there are so many environments in which you can exist besides a relationship in order to know yourself. And that is what I encourage in people. You could be like, you could be 30 and not have a strong sense of self. Okay, cool. But the likelihood of that is far less than if you're 20. Because you would have had more time. You would have naturally have probably seen yourself in a more of a variety of environments. And so with that being said, you know which parts of you are still changing, but you know which parts of you are likely to not change. And that is also key. Because here's the thing, for me, I could be wrong, and I will very much admit that, because I'm 23. My environments haven't changed all too much in the past 5 years, so my opinion could very much change. If I were to talk about the partner I think I need, as opposed to the one that I perhaps want, if I truly, genuinely think about a partner that I would need, at this point in my life, I know that I don't have a strong sense of self with regards to, I guess, my mindset towards a lot of things. I'm still figuring that out about, where do I even start? My theories on relationships, whether I think monogamy is good or polyamory, what else? Oh my God, like there are so many things that I'm still so undecided on. And I know that that's still changing, and I'm okay with that. I'm young and I'm open to the confusion. I'd like to have some sense of being solid by the time I'm 30, because I would have had enough time to educate myself and come to my own conclusions. But I'm okay with being confused about that. But one thing I'm not confused about is the fact that naturally I am a very shy person. So the type of person that I would need, I would think somebody who's not naturally shy. Like, I would want them to balance me out like that. That's a key core thing that I feel like I would need in a person. I have the tendency to get caught up in the details of things, to get very neurotic, I think that's a word, about a lot of things. So I would want to be with somebody who's just naturally more chill. So these are like two key things that I feel like I will just need, because I know inherently, naturally who I am, what my nature is. Like, I'm coming to terms with it, and I'm recognizing there are certain things about myself that I will just never be able to change, and I'm not going to waste my time and apologize for that. You know, I might as well just embrace it and be like, it is what it is. I've tried and it's not going to work because I'm going against the grain of who I am. But these other things, like the lighter things, like my opinions on marriage, etc., as a general, and then also for myself, like that's still something I'm navigating. So what I'm trying to say is like, I'm taking the time to get to know myself. And I don't think that that's something you're going to do your whole life in a way, but I think especially in like the first quarter of your life, 25 years to 30, especially like before your Saturn return, like before the age of 27 to 29, what do you think you're doing? Like not knowing yourself, not taking the time to know yourself. There are people, yes, they are like 20 or so and they get married, and often these are very religious people. I think the reason, because it doesn't always work out, but I feel like when we look at younger marriages, I could be wrong because I haven't looked at the data, but when we look at younger marriages, the people that get married that are religious, I feel like their relationships often work out better than the people that are not religious. And I think it's because that religion gives them a strong sense of self. That religion gives them a strong sense of identity. For people that aren't religious, or people that are like agnostic about it or whatever, you need to realize that you're gonna need that time. You're gonna need that time. If you don't like, if you don't have the structure and the anchor of religion providing you with a strong sense of identity, you're gonna need to go out and put yourself in different environments to get a stronger sense of self. But that doesn't mean that you need to constantly be in a relationship to have your sense of self be validated. To have yourself be validated. You are valid without a partner. Your existence is valid without somebody being like in a relationship with you, or you being in a relationship with somebody else. I really feel like we need to stop running from ourselves. And I think an issue also in the West, I mean, maybe it's ironic for me to critique it, seeing as I'm living and growing up in the West and gaining I get to experience the privileges of it, but I think that also rightfully so, that's what enables me to critique it with a better perspective, maybe, I don't know. But we can be quite individualistic, and the sense of community isn't as strong here, and so we look for connection in romance because that's what's presented to us. Whereas if you look at things like, I don't know about other cultures, but definitely in Bollywood media, you'll find more stories that are to do with love that goes beyond romance and connection that is like within the whole family, or there's a huge sense of community. And I won't say that they can't get it wrong, like absolutely things can be taken to an extreme, but it's very hard to be lonely in the East. It's very hard. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but there's a strong sense of community, and so that need to feel loved and validated, your cup is usually quite full, often overflowing. You'll have this relative, that relative. It can be too much. It can be very overwhelming, but at the same time, you never feel like alone. I'm not saying depression doesn't exist. I'm not saying the exceptions don't exist, but like it is very hard to feel inclined to turn to a romantic relationship to solve your problems. Whereas I feel like in the West, a lot of people are like, I need love, and love to them, the first image that comes to them is romance. So I can understand why people use that as a band-aid, but I think the real issue to tackle is creating a stronger sense of community, togetherness, and purpose that isn't self-serving. You know, maybe we're getting into something else. When we pursue romance, it's coming from a place of feeling lost within oneself. Being lost, being confused, feeling unanchored. It's so easy to want to run away from that when your society doesn't really provide you with many solutions as to what the alternative could be. Marriage is not a band-aid. Marriage is a coming together of two individuals that wish to literally just go through life together. It's not a band-aid. It's not a solution. Once we recognize that, like the sanctity of it, it could help a lot of people to, I don't know, waste less time. Yeah. Even things like drug addiction and stuff like that, there's such a focus on external stuff in order to validate our internal in the West. Whereas I think something about the East, I don't know, maybe I have to read up on this or something. I don't know what it is, but there's something so deeply embedded in the culture. I'm not saying alcoholism doesn't exist. It does. I'm not saying drug addictions. I'm not saying that the East is all where it's at, because no, we certainly have our flaws there as well. But it's just more that they, even if you're being sort of mollycoddled growing up and you've got like strict Asian parents, you will always feel that there's always like a strong sense of love. It's very hard to feel unanchored in your sense of self, because what's being reflected to you is just this deep love and care and sense of community, like you belong to something. And I think people feel like when they're in a romantic relationship that they belong. Because what's their alternative? Just me, myself, and I, and then that person next to you is also me, myself, and I? Like everybody's just out for themselves? It's really sad. It's really, really sad. But that's why they say, like, after a breakup, hang out with your friends. And it's like, why do you think they say that? It's not just to be distracted. It's just so that you can feel the love, but like in another type of way. There's no need for you to run and rush into a relationship. So many people, they get fixated. Okay, I'm gonna become my law of attraction thing, my manifestation thing. And I've seen this so many times with that, and also I'll be honest with pregnancy, but that's a different issue, where people will have like infertility issues, and then they'll be like, okay, I have to get, I'm gonna manifest, and then it all goes pear-shaped. Like the person will get into that dream relationship, and then something will still go wrong, and then they don't know what to do, and they give up, and then that's when they meet the actual dream person, or that's when they finally get pregnant. And so stop stressing about finding that external thing. Just focus on today, focus on who you are today, feel good in yourself today, win today. For you, people have this thing like, if I do XYZ, I'll be like wifey material, so I'll attract this and da-da-da-da. Shut up. Because yeah, you might be right, but you don't know when that's coming. So what, are you just gonna sit around doing everything that you do, trying to be hot or whatever, just so that you can have that? We are still saying that is the thing that's gonna make you happy, because your intention behind everything that you're doing right now is to have that outcome. If I say this thing, if I do this thing, if I show up wifey material like this, if I am on my best behavior and da-da-da-da-da, and my waist is this many inches, and I earn this much, and then I will attract this. But why, like do it for yourself. Do it for yourself, because if you're thinking marriage and you're thinking partnership, yeah, you're not going to be performing. And right now, you're being a clown, you're performing. It's a temporary act. There's nothing wrong with making change that's beneficial, but the reality is, I heard this, what was it? It was a podcast. I need to find out her name. So it was a podcast. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced her name. Ayelet Fishback, on Jay Shetty's podcast, and I haven't listened to the whole thing, but she was talking about productivity and stuff like that. One of the things she mentioned, by the way, I'm gonna butcher the quote, but she said one of the mistakes we make with regards to productivity, I think it was productivity, is that we assume that our future selves are just inherently gonna be better than our present selves. Like they will never experience the shit that we are presently experiencing, that their level of output will be 10 times as much as what we're capable of now. And yes, that could be true, for a little bit, but for the most part, no. So you need to look at, she basically concluded that just for the safest thing, assume that your future output will be no more than what your present output is, and then strategize in accordance to that. So what I'm trying to say, using that as an example, is look at who you are now today, okay? If you're looking at marriage and partnership, by the way, these are all my points. It's not so much what my dad said. He's talked about other stuff. But I should totally get him on here and get him to give a lecture. I don't know, maybe when I have a successful marriage or something, we can get him on here. Look at who you are now, okay? If you're so set on getting married, on finding the one, etc., look at who you are now. Ask yourself honestly, is this person objectively somebody who A, would be healthiest and happiest in a long-term commitment like marriage, and B, are they marriage material? Would I partner them myself? And or C, what type of partner would be a good fit for who I am today? In asking these things with A, you find out if marriage is something you actually want. If partnership, you might not want marriage, but you might want long-term partnership. If that's something you actually want, because this is a reality we're talking about. We're talking about probably sleeping in the same bed as this person. Waking up, your different sleep schedules, their, cleanliness habits in your bathroom. We're talking finances, we're talking kids or no kids, we're talking their relatives, your relatives, culture clashes, lifestyle choices, all of that. We're not only that, but commitment, monogamy potentially, saying no to other people, etc. In sickness and in health? Are you sure? Really find out, is that something you want? And so many people will force them to say, yeah, no, something. Hold on, think for yourself. There's no shame. Seriously, there's no shame either way. Just be honest with yourself. Just be honest with yourself. Okay? With B, you find out, what was B again? This is why I gotta meditate, man. Seriously, otherwise my thoughts are just like jalebi in my head. Would you partner yourself? Now, we've all heard this before, but like, if you don't know how to manage your emotions, you don't know how to manage your money, let's see, I don't know, you have a really, really bad drinking habit or something, like, look at yourself from the perspective of somebody else, or from the perspective of just yourself. Do you find yourself attractive? Because that's a huge thing. Because if you don't find yourself attractive, what guarantees that other people will find you attractive? Or those things that the things about yourself that you don't find attractive, you have to accept that other people will also probably not find that attractive, okay? And the other thing is, in a relationship, it is so important that you are attracted to yourself. Because when you're attracted to yourself, you can sell yourself. And I don't mean like you literally have to sell yourself every day in a relationship. But I mean, when you're attracted to yourself, it makes the other person more attracted to you. You can't deny that, okay? So really check in there and see if there's something, anything that needs a little dusting. And see what type of person would be attracted to who I am today. Not who I am once I put my face on and when I'm on my best behavior and when I'm a wifey material. No, when I'm my raw, realist self, who would be attracted to me? What type of person would be attracted to me? If I'm looking for a long-term partnership and I truly will not change certain things about myself, what is the type of person I will attract? Now, if the thing that you are, say you're unwilling to change this about yourself, say it's a shitty drinking habit, for example, yeah? If you're unwilling to change that about yourself, what makes you think that you're going to attract somebody that has healthy habits? That a person like that is going to stick around in an environment that you're creating that is unhealthy for them. Very few people will want to be in an environment which is not aligned with them. Because somebody that doesn't have a reckless drinking habit, chances are, A, they prioritize health, or B, they're not running from something. They're not coping with alcohol. They deal with their problems head on. Or they've dealt with their problems. So really look at yourself and then be like, am I okay with that? Am I okay with that? Because if I'm going to have my vices and I'm not going to change them, I need to be okay with the fact that I'm going to attract somebody that's also going to have their vices and they're probably not going to want to change them. Because you can't go in there being a hypocrite, I'll be honest. You can't go in there being like, they can't drink, they can't eat like this, they can't da-da-da-da-da, and then you're the one standarding it up. That's not fair. So if your answer to that is no, actually, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to attract somebody like that. Because again, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Then you need to go and change that about yourself. You need to go and do the work. People will always have inherent respect for the outcome. And I think I might have mentioned this, I just don't know if I've uploaded it. We will always inherently have respect for the person with the 6-pack, the 8-pack, etc. But the majority of people can recognize as humans how difficult it is to put in the work on the daily. So just as we may respect the person with the 8-pack, we will also respect the person that shows up to the gym 5 times a week and eats clean, in an attempt to get that 8-pack or in an attempt to get healthier. So you may be like, okay, I have this vice, so this means that I'm going to attract somebody with this. Okay, maybe that's not what you want. But maybe you look at yourself and you're like, maybe I'm never going to be perfect. Like, I'm never going to be cured of this vice. Like, it's always kind of going to be there. Okay, so then what are you going to do about it? What type of person do you want to attract? Given that, maybe you want to attract somebody who's working on their vices, and that can be your journey together, that you help each other. It's just about accepting what you are and working with that. There are some parts of you that will inherently be more difficult to change than other parts of you. But you need to recognize what that is. And it's like everyone just goes out and keeps looking for somebody else to answer questions that they themselves don't even have the answers to. They cannot tell you what is within you. They can reflect it in some shape or form. These people that are like serial monogamous people from the age of 15 or 14 or God knows what. Your partner can reflect back to you, but they cannot know what is truly within you. You need to reflect on yourself. If you're this person that's had a series of monogamous relationships, as I mentioned before, if they've all gone wrong in a certain type of way, what is the common denominator? You. What specifically is it within you that is creating that outcome? You need to be brutally honest with yourself, because nobody else can truly do that unless they're incredibly intuitive and they've been watching you like a hawk, which is kind of weird if you think about it. Ask yourself questions. I'm not saying I have all the answers. Like I said, I'm 20. Did I say I'm 23? I'm 22. Why did I say I'm 23? Fuck. I'm fast forwarding into the end of the year. Oh my god, no, I'm 22. I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I'm definitely figuring a lot out still. But you're doing more harm than good when you run away from yourself and you turn away from yourself. Loving yourself is also knowing yourself. How can you love all that you are without knowing all that you are? And again, like I said, you're not gonna go through life always knowing who you are. Like I see my parents and they're in their 50s. They don't know exactly all of that, who they are and whatever. Like, no. Otherwise, what would be the point in life? Like, we are always experiencing ourselves and reincarnations of ourselves within this reincarnation. But when I say knowing yourself, it is like being in touch with your nature and not shying away from that. So much harm is done when when you turn away from who you authentically are. There will be facets of yourself that you just cannot change, and that is okay. The issue arises when you suppress that, or when you say, no, I actually want this. Like those people that convince themselves they want marriage, and they just don't. They clearly don't. Evidence shows that they don't. I'll be honest, this is vulnerable and hard to talk about because it's like private sort of, but when I was in my relationship, don't get me wrong, I could do all the wifey material stuff, but there was this feeling inside of me that I couldn't run away from, and it was causing suffering in my relationship. And it was because I kept denying it, it was because I kept running away from it, that symptoms would arise, right? So I had this root issue that I was unwilling to face because it created discomfort in the immediate environment. It created discomfort in the short term because it meant it could ruffle some feathers. It could upset people around me. The fact that I just didn't want to be in a relationship and I didn't want to be in that relationship. That was such a difficult truth to admit because I loved that person so much and I still love them so much to this day. And there are like societal conventions and norms, and like it was so difficult, but the symptoms kept coming up, and maybe I'll talk about it sometime in the future. I don't want to talk about it right now. But it was a very, very painful thing to experience. Not the relationship in itself, but the symptoms that arose from me forcing myself to be someone that I just wasn't. And it's not that I'm not wifey material. I just couldn't be that. I couldn't be that at that time, in that scenario. I just couldn't. You know? And I tried to deny that, but it just created more suffering. And when I finally set both me and my ex-boyfriend free, of course it hurt. Of course it hurt. There's no denying that, especially when you love the person. My God, it was agony. But I've never regretted it because I don't have that suffering anymore. And my partner, or my ex, doesn't experience that suffering either. And so it is better to face all that you are, even if it's confusing, even if you don't have all the answers, just intuitively. Sometimes as well, what people forget, intuition doesn't always speak to you with words. And for my anxious folks out there, keep that in mind, because you might be thinking, okay, well, is that anxiety or is that my intuition? Intuition sometimes will not communicate with you in words. It can communicate with you through your emotions. How do you feel? It can communicate with you through your health. Seriously, your mental health, your physical health. Really important. Pay attention to that. Don't try and shut down what's true to you. That's your music, okay? And you need to listen in. You need to tune your radio station and learn to listen to that. That is the biggest self-service that you can do. Because when you do that, that's when you're of optimum service to other people as well. Because there's no sugarcoating it. You're not coming in saying, yes, I can meet your expectation, your expectation, your expectation. You're not running either, because you have no reason to run. You have confronted who you are and what you are. And when you do that, and you see the entirety of it, and you accept it for what it is, and you understand it, my God, the love and empathy you will have for yourself is something else. And then you'll know what you need, and you'll know, you'll feel whole, you'll feel integrated. And people are always, they're going out trying to find their other half, their other half, their other half. No, your other half is within you. People will say, you are whole as yourself, and to an extent, I agree, but I think that is a journey. You're not just whole on your own. You have to integrate with yourself. You have to see yourself for all that you are and not run. And I think I can speak from personal experience, because that's what's kept me here. That's what's kept me alive. That's what's kept me from all that stuff. Because I could see myself. I'd encountered myself. And once you've done that, there's no running away. There's no need to. It can be scary, but the more, it's kind of like looking at what you perceive to be a monster. Perhaps like a lion. Did I dream about this? Oh my God. I'm getting a really weird vision. Was it a dream? Oh my God, maybe it was. I think I dreamt this Yes, oh my God, wow, that's spooky. Okay, so I dreamt this a long time ago. I think I was in the jungle, something like that, and I was running away from this huge lion. And I think it was made of fire and stuff like that. I don't know, maybe that I read a story or something online. It could be something else, but it feels like a dream. So I'm gonna just go with that. And I'm running and I'm running and I'm running. And eventually I turn around and I face it. And it's terrifying. And it's roaring and it's screaming. And I just face it. And eventually it softens. And I realize it's just a tiny little kitten. A kitten that's hurting and needs nurturing and needs love and needs my attention. And I don't know, I think that was the end of it, something like that. Basically, this huge scary thing just turned into a very small, vulnerable, soft, gentle thing. And what I'm trying to say is, I feel like that's integration. That's becoming whole. That's coming into oneself. It's, you know, you don't have to keep running. Like, it feels like, you know, when you avoid your homework or something, right? And then it feels worse than it is, and you feel like it's gonna be this huge mountain to climb, and now you're like weeks behind. Really, like, when you break it down, it's actually not that bad. And if you intensely worked on it, you could crush that content in a week, right? But we make things out to seem scarier than they are. That lion that's on fire, or that fiery lion, whatever, that's just your perception of it. What turns that kitten into that lion made of fire is if we think about the kitten, or we think about what it is that's behind us, let's say, chasing us. We cannot see it for what it is because we do not address it. And when you don't address something, you can't see it remotely, objectively, because you're reliving it through the emotions. Like, it's like the whole problem shared, problem halved type of thing. Do I think that's entirely accurate? Not always. But anyway, you're giving it more importance by ignoring it, in this sense. Like, your inability to just like tell it for what it is, and your inability to just confront it, is making it into a bigger issue, basically snowballing. But like, this, what we perceive to be a lion, is actually just our inner child. Like, okay, how do I explain this? Think about the things in your life that hurt you, right? Think about your trauma. When you think about what happened to you, how do you feel? Ask yourself, how do you feel? Do you feel like your present adult self experiencing emotions, or do you feel like your child self experiencing those emotions? Vulnerable, soft, scared, right? All of that. When you experience reiterations of that, if somebody speaks to you in a way that perhaps a harsh parent did, or whatever, if that trauma is emulated, do you experience it as an adult, or do you experience it as a 5-year-old child that was the victim? Be honest. What I'm trying to say is that when we reflect upon our traumas, or when we run away from them, the way that we remember them has not changed, because we have not gone in and changed anything. We have not addressed them through an adult lens, through an objective lens, through a healing lens with a therapist or a friend that you can confide in, or perhaps even the person that hurt you. Instead, you leave it there. You leave it there, and it stays as the perception of the 5-year-old who was hurt. And that does more damage than good. If you don't address it, it stays stuck. It stays there, and it stays there haunting you, like a monster under your bed. Never looking under your bed doesn't change the fact that the monster's still there. So, in effect, by never turning around and facing that so-called lion, you keep giving it the power. It keeps seeming like this roaring, flaming lion, when in actuality, it's just a kitten. It's just a painful memory that needs to be undressed. Face yourself. Face yourself. Face what hurts you, even if it's raw and it's uncomfortable and it's gritty and it's like ugly. You know, face it. Face it. Because in running away from it, you're running away from a huge part of yourself. A huge part of yourself. I think one of the hardest things, see with parenting as well, no one gives any parents a real guidebook, a handbook. Like, there are parenting books, don't get me wrong, and then there are obviously studies as well, but come on, let's be real. How many of our parents actually read those studies? How many parents actually read all of those books? Most of them are just winging it, okay? And they're winging it based on what they think is right, what they were brought up with, and the best that they can do, if they're decent parents, that is, okay? So And even if someone did give them a guidebook, no one gave them a guidebook that was appropriate for you, and then your sibling, and then your other sibling, and then like every kid is also different. So our role, I really feel like in our 20s as well, is to parent ourselves. Learn how to parent yourself, because up until this point it's been your parents or your guardians. Okay, now whether or not they did a good job, I mean, you're the best judge of that. And I mean, yeah, I guess, because you're a kid, you're on the receiving end of it. And maybe a therapist, they could have a decent amount of input, but they have been parenting up until this point. Now, naturally, there are going to be things that they've missed, right? Even if they tried their best, there will be gaps that were not filled when you were a child. And that could be that kitten, that lion, whatever, right? Now, in your 20s, instead of going out and trying to find yourself through another person, what you really need to do is confront it. Now, that comes through therapy, that comes through journaling, that comes through when you make a mistake, look back and be like, what made me do that? What made me speak like that? What made me act that way? Why do I shut down when XYZ happens? Introspection. But when you don't have enough of that, it's like you're constantly going out, almost asking people, like complete me, be that kitten, or like, distract me so much that lion doesn't exist. Honey is gonna exist. It's gonna keep existing until you turn around and just give it a big old hug. It's that type of thing. When like your parent is like really, really angry at you, like really pissed off, but it's actually just coming from a place of like deep love. Like they care about you so damn much that they are so angry, like either on your butt, like they're just angry. They're just angry, right? Now, this isn't something I've done like that many times, but there have been a couple of times where I did this when I was younger. And I just realized, like, even if this is coming from a place of hurt where I've done something to hurt them and they want to feel appreciated, there are a couple of times I literally just went and gave them a hug. They were terrified. Bloody terrified. Oh, it was risky. Yeah, it was scary. But I went and gave them a hug. And what happened? They softened. Did it work did I do this every time? No, because it wasn't appropriate in every situation. But at the times where it was appropriate, and this only happened like a couple of times, I'm serious. I literally just went and gave them the most loving hug. And they softened. And the reality of what was came through. The vulnerability of it, the softness, listen, it's because I care about you that I am upset with you about this, But if you never confront the thing that scares you, if you never confront what you perceive to be a roaring lion, it's never going to turn into a kitten that you can love and hold and play with. I admit, like, there are parts of myself that, I have been clearly traumatized and clearly hurt, and I understand that those things are imperfections within me, and I act out in accordance with my hurt, and sometimes I'll say things that, like, not directly, but like sometimes even my outlooks and my views here can be reflective of my own personal pain. And so I always want to be growing, and I always want to be healing, and there are certain things regarding that pain that I do want to address and change, because I don't want to stay stuck there. I don't want to stay stuck in that hurt. I don't want to feel like that thing constantly will have control over me. So I will continue to address it, even if it's uncomfortable, because I know that I deserve to live a better life, an integrated life. One where I can look at my wounds and be like, they happened. My scars are there, but that's okay, because I'm a better person because of it. I'm aware. Why would you want to go through life unscathed? Don't get me wrong, it would be far less painful, but I think there is progress in pain. There is something to be learned from it. Not all, of it, of course, but for a lot of it, there is always a silver lining. There is something we can take from it and integrate within ourselves. And we also get a choice. We get to say, this happened to me, or this happened in my life. Am I going to become my pain? Am I going to become my hurt? Or am I going to look at it and be like, I can be better than this. And I can help other people that are experiencing this so that they don't go through what I went through, or they don't become their pain. So we have choices as well. And I think that you can make a stronger choice when you look at all of who you are, embrace it and say, okay, this is what I'm working with. I really feel like so much confidence comes from that. And when you're confident in yourself like that, you won't look for a band-aid. Because you realize that a band-aid, You're not even afraid of a bullet hole. So why would you look for a band-aid? You feel me? Does that make sense? That's been a long ass video. I'm very sorry, guys. That was just an improv one. You can tell, like, I haven't got makeup on, anything like that, but I just really wanted to come here and tell you guys that you don't have to keep being in romantic relationships to feel at one with yourself, to feel at peace with yourself. Peace as well is ironic, I feel, at least my understanding of it. Peace doesn't have to be, oh shit, I got so many chores to do. A lot of people feel that peace is just inherent. Maybe it's the Scorpio in me, but like I don't feel like peace should just exist. I think true peace is understanding that conflict is inherent. Conflict is a given. It is through embracing yourself. There is conflict within, and I need like a quote to sum this up. Like the world is conflict as well. Like, when you embrace everything that you are, you will inherently experience conflict with your neighbor, because they are inherently different to you. We are not the same, right? So there is just an inherent conflict that exists. And I think, without getting too like philosophical and weird and juju, not that I haven't already done that, but peace is understanding that conflict is inherent and yet still finding a way to cooperate and be respectful. It's like the understanding that, like in the UK, for example, there are multiple religions here. It doesn't mean that, see, I think if we take the metaphor of this, one could say, oh, well, if everybody's Christian in this country, then that's peace. I don't think so. I think that peace is having a Christian be friends with a Muslim, that's friends with a Hindu, that's friends with a Sikh, that's friends with a Jew. Like having, I'm sorry if I missed anybody, but like having all of them, having everybody understand, this is where I'm at, this is who I'm gonna be, this is why this is just what I believe, you know, and you can believe what you believe, and you know what, okay, cool. Just as I would want to be respected, I respect you. We are different. We go about things in different ways. I may not agree with you, but I don't need to agree with you in order to experience happiness in life with you, because I recognize that you're on your own journey. Where am I now and why am I saying this? Shit. Yeah, so I was talking about like peace and stuff. Sorry, my camera angles changed, just fix my storage. People think that like you're just gonna wake up one day and you're gonna love yourself. You should just love yourself as you are. Don't work like that, okay? You have to go in, do a little dissecting, see all that you are, admit where the conflict inherently exists within you, and then through that you can find that peace, you can find that love, because you can look at yourself and be like, I know who I am, I know what I am, and I irritate myself too sometimes, you know, like you know, in a relationship, because it's called the relationship with yourself. So like, you know, when you have a relationship with somebody, there are going to be times when you clash, there are going to be times where you don't agree with each other, where you get on each other's nerves, whatnot. So there will be times, like there are things about myself where I get irritated with myself. You have no idea. But there are so many things I love about myself that I would never change, because I know that's what makes me me. And it's a hard thing, like learning how to not only confront that, then heal it, then love it, then embrace this is who I am, then go out into the world and be like, okay everyone, this is who I am. And then face backlash, but it's honestly, I think that there is so much to be gained from embracing yourself, embracing that little kitten, that seemingly huge scary lion, and realizing that it's just a kitten. I know that this video has been all over the place, but I hope that you understand what I'm trying to say. There is so much, like, that love. If we say, for example, that little kitten is your inner child that was wounded, imagine the immense strength and power of the love that you would be able to give to your inner child, and how healing that would be, versus going out with someone that you barely know and thinking that they can go and love and actually heal that inner child. it doesn't, it doesn't really work that way. I think maybe that's why a lot of people feel drawn to twin flame relationships, is because it's a sort of form of catharsis. I haven't done too much research on this, but I think from what I understand, twin flame relationships, it's like you almost have the same story, or like you're sort of like mirrors of each other in a very strong way. Like you rub each other up and like, but the way that it's like you're fighting the same battle, but just in different ways. And it's because your inner child went through things that were very, very similar, and you're meant to address that and confront that together. And I think those relationships, obviously, they have a time and a place that can be very transformational, but they can also be very toxic and very chaotic. And so would I prescribe that as a form of therapy or treatment for the inability to come together with oneself? No, I would recommend first you deal with your shit. You get your big boy, big girl pants on, and you deal with your shit, rather than going out there, finding somebody who mirrors your toxicity, and then creating God knows what havoc and damage and listening to however many Taylor Swift songs. Like, can you just, no, we don't need that much chaos. So come to terms with your own internal chaos, and you'll face and create a lot less externally as a result of it. I don't know, maybe I'm hoping I've given enough examples. I should have at this point, probably been over an hour, but it's that thing when people are unhealed within themselves, they go out and they create scenarios that replicate the pain that did the damage to them in the first place. So that inability to treat one's chaos is what goes out and creates further chaos in this world, which of course creates more harm. But the root of the issue has not been addressed, and that was that the initial person had to go and look within and be like, what is it that I'm perpetuating here? And what is the hurt that I am allowing in the narrative that I tell myself again and again and again? Why do I feel the need to go out and create this havoc when I could just address that within myself? And I think that that's where responsibility comes in, because if you feel any form of responsibility towards people, let alone yourself, then you will go in and you will heal that and you will address that. Because it will be brutal, it will be painful in the short term, but in the long term, you go and you create peace. Be at war with yourself first so that you can create peace. It sounds contradictory, but I think that's where it's at. That's where a lot of things are at. To attain peace, like again, say for example, you have a couple. One person feels A about something. Other person feels B about something. If neither of them speak up about that, what do you have? Is it a stalemate? I don't know. You have basically, that conflict is not addressed. It doesn't mean the conflict isn't there though. It is, just no one's speaking up about it. Right? So if you wish to attain peace, because you know what it feels like when you're in a relationship and you feel a certain type of way, but you don't say it because you want to keep the peace. That's not keeping the peace. Think about how you feel. You don't feel peaceful right now. You feel aggravated. You feel like there is something within you that needs to get out, right? So in order to attain that peace, you need to speak up. That person needs to speak up. It needs to be addressed. The issue needs to be addressed. My hands feel really weird right now, and that just kind of gave me a sign that I'm saying the right things. That's weird. Sometimes I feel very woozy. Does anyone get that? Like when you feel like you're channeling, like you could be a musician and you're creating music, like when you feel like you're in flow and you're like listening and it's not you speaking, it's like your higher self coming through. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you ever feel like weird in your body? Like you're almost not there, like this isn't real. Oh my god, I know, I sound so kooky, I sound like I'm on something. I'm not, I swear. Like I've had a vitamin C tablet and I've had leftover spaghetti bolognese, so that's it. I'm not on anything. But peace comes through that conflict. You need to address the issue, and then you might yell at each other, I wouldn't advise that, but sometimes it happens, if you need to get that out, like it happens. So you might yell at each other, you might really even say things you don't mean to say, like it's but then in that you can actually, if you are well versed at listening, you can and you care about each other's thoughts and opinions and respect each other, then you can actually hear what the other person is saying and be like, okay, so you actually feel A because of this, or you want A because of this. Okay, I can understand. I feel this way though because da 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 da. And then you can actually come to an agreement, which is peace. It will mean compromise, but it's the most peaceful option, as opposed to keeping that within you and you kind of just, no one's saying anything and it's kind of like awkward, and then just say it, get it out, find a resolution, and then move on. Similarly, confront your shit, be integrated with yourself. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to entirely know who you are, no. But you need to have a sense of self, and that comes from knowing yourself. If you keep running away from yourself, how can you know yourself? Think about it. You might have addressed it for a minute. Oh, I went to one therapy session, and then you ran away. Well, that's not good enough. It's like meeting somebody for the first time. You meet them for one session. You meet like somebody once, and then you run away. Well, how are you gonna know them if you've only had one conversation? We get to know ourselves. When I say like we go out and we sort of test out our theories and stuff. See, when I say I know myself, or I'm learning to know myself, is because when I've been at work, I have been put to the test. I've seen my subconscious come through in the way that I speak to people, in the way that I handle issues. My insecurities come through in the way that I led a team, different things. You witness yourself. And then you turn around and you're like, okay, well, why did I feel insecure when that person was aggressive towards me? Why did I feel like I couldn't handle it? Was there a scenario when I was younger, when I was made to feel like I couldn't speak up? Or, just address it. It is okay. It will be painful in the moment, but it will cost you far more to not address it than it will to address it. Go and get that surgery. Go and get that bullet wound treated rather than leaving it there rotting and trying to stick band-aids on it like a fucking idiot. Please. Get the bullet out. Go, you know what I mean? This bra be popping, baby. Oh my god. Fabletics, sponsor me now. Thank you. I was meant to go to the gym, but I had a bajillion things to do. So now I'm just wearing gym clothes. You can see my tan line. That's quite funny. But anyway, that's the end of my ramble sesh for today. I've said more than enough. Let me know your comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.